Have you considered participating in a mastermind group, or have you thought about organizing one yourself? Or maybe you've never heard of this concept, but you'd like to enhance your performance in some area of your work or personal life. I'm Tom Haley, and this is Bluegrass Region Voices and Views, where I talk with creative and inspiring people around the Bluegrass region of Kentucky, and I have fun with friends. My guest is Doug Semenick. Doug is a consultant, professional speaker, and workshop leader. He works out of Shelbyville, Kentucky. His primary focus is guiding companies in developing their leaders. One of his tools or processes involves forming mastermind groups. This conversation focuses on defining mastermind groups and the details about setting one up and participating in its operation. Doug is a repeat guest. To learn more about what he teaches on leadership, you can listen to episode number 25, dated April 30, 2022, titled Leaders Developing Leaders. At the beginning of that conversation, we also get into some of Doug's personal story, so we didn't repeat that here. Drop in on this conversation after I've asked Doug to define a mastermind group.
The mastermind concept it's very simple. It's based on the idea that two heads are better than one. And you and I have been in mastermind group. You have a whole life experience, personally and professionally and so forth. And I have similar things, but we see the world differently and the problems that we have. You will approach a problem from one way, I'll approach from another. And when we share that in a relationship that is non-competitive, we get a synergy that two together can equal 4, 5, or 6. The concept itself was from Think and Grow Rich back in 1937, Napoleon Hill. His whole idea was that when two people come together, two or more come together, and they share their knowledge and understanding, their two brains actually create this kind of mystical third mind, is what he called it. And he called that the mastermind, which two people together, or 3 or 4, when they share their information, they blend their minds together, they create an understanding that is much greater than any one of them could have had on their own.
You mentioned Napoleon Hill, and I love that you brought him up, because reading some of his works back in the 70s meant a great deal to me. Tell us a little bit about the first time you ran across Napoleon Hill.
Well, again, it was Think and Grow Rich. And one of the good things about that book, it's in the public domain, so anybody can download it and read it today and so forth. But just the idea, I have come out of a career in competition, a lot of it, athletic competition and so forth. And this whole concept is so intriguing to me that it's not teamwork, but it's when individuals can come together and put into the mix all of their talent and knowledge and skills and abilities, and out of that, each individual can draw from it, and it's just an exciting enterprise to be involved in. So I read some of his quotes. He wrote quite a bit, was a speaker back in his day, but the major thing was just the idea, when 2 or more people come together in a non-competitive way and they share their experiences, they learn to trust each other and share, they both walk out of that situation experiencing synergy, which is a very powerful concept.
Well, I want to come back to synergy in a moment, but you referred to, just made a brief reference to your career. Tell us a little bit about your career. I know that's in another podcast that we did last year, but if you would just flesh that out a little bit.
Well, very briefly, I was a high school teacher in Fairdale, Kentucky for 6 years, and it was a very satisfying part of my career because I got the opportunity. I taught science and biology, and I coached 3 sports, and and I got to know the families, and I just thoroughly enjoyed that. And right there was kind of a little bit of the birth of this mastermind concept being played out in my life, because when I got to know the different families and how they saw things and could develop good trusting relationships, they trusted me with their sons. And so they were a lot more open. And when I would have some personal or professional difficulties, I had a group of friends there that created this. I didn't know what it was at the time, this mastermind type of thing, with several people that care about each other and trust each other, can share some problems or opportunities and walk out of that interaction much better than they did walking in. So I was a high school teacher for 6 years, and then I went into college coaching up in 1980. I was up at Temple University in Philadelphia. Then I came back to the University of Louisville, and I've spent the rest of my coaching career there, 5 years with football before the Howard Schnellenberger era. And then I spent 7 years with Denny Crum in basketball, and I'm training athletes at the university. But all of that experience in high school and college coaching over a couple decades was competition. And you're looking at becoming the best that you can be as a team so that you can defeat another team. Well, the mastermind concept is substantially different from that, and yet you get some of the similar benefits.
And what is your career today?
My career today is I do leadership training, and we have our flagship offering is what we call our Leadership Academy. It's 12 modules. A lot of times we'll do this once a month over the course of a year. We can do this over a couple weeks and even a couple days. So we customize it to our clients, but it's leadership training today. And most of the concepts that I teach in leadership training, I wish they taught them in junior high school. It's just basically, it's all about relationships. Everything else is details. And if you can learn to get along with people, to manage conflict and to build trusting relationships, that's the heart of leadership. Because leadership is influence, start to finish. It's influence. And if you're going to influence people, people want to be around somebody who's trustworthy and shares a positive experience.
Okay, great. Well, we'll move back to the mastermind concept. You mentioned synergy is a foundational aspect of the mastermind concept. Maybe go into a little bit more depth about what synergy is.
Well, synergy really became popular in our lexicon with Stephen Covey back 1989. He, in my estimation, wrote the greatest business book of all time, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that, he talked about 3 habits that would take you from being dependent as a child grows up, from being dependent to independent. And in our society, we generally consider when somebody becomes independent, they can get a job and a house or an apartment and their relationships, we consider that mature. Well, what Stephen Covey did, he took it to the next level, and he talked about a higher way being interdependent, which people come together in, either families or teams or communities, and they learn how to leverage each other's talents, skills, experiences, and abilities to create an opportunity to do things that they could never do on their own. So synergy was one of his 7 habits. People come together and synergize. And the whole idea is that really, in essence, 1 + 1 + 1 can equal 10, 15, or 50 because of the multiplicative effect of this mastermind that comes together.
But I think you've mentioned that's different from teamwork.
Yeah, teamwork is when you'll bring several people together to accomplish something that the team itself wants to accomplish. So it's more of a team aspect, right? Mastermind, on the other hand, is an individual aspect where an individual can multiply their knowledge, skill, ability, and capabilities individually because of the input in working together with other individuals. So teamwork is more the team accomplishing a goal or an aim, and masterminding develops the individual to do things that they could never do on their own. As a matter of fact, Napoleon Hill, in his seminal work, said that in a mastermind group, he said you can accomplish more in 1 year than an individual could in a lifetime if they were just using their own wits. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty powerful statement to me.
Now, do the members of a mastermind group need to be in the same industry, or can you have a group of people from different aspects of life, different industries, with different interests, but they're somehow feeding into one another? I don't know what I'm saying exactly.
I guess the answer to that is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's pervasive. Some mastermind groups come together because the group itself has a common desire, want, need, and that could be a personal thing. What I've been involved with pretty much is the professional end of it. You and I, when we were in our mastermind group, we were talking about professional speaking, and the people in our, I believe we had 5 at one time in our mastermind group, and we were just talking about the experiences we had because we learned to trust each other. We could share our knowledge and experiences, and everybody gains from that. So it's like having an informal board of directors that is helping you be the best that you can be in your enterprise. So it can be business, it can be personal. It's just the idea that several people come together. They've got a common background or interest, and they're trying to achieve something they cannot achieve on their own.
Okay. And how do these people find one another?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I'm just finished doing one of my leadership academies at one of the distillers in Kentucky here. And there were 11 supervisors and 11 managers, 2 different classes. Now, what we're going to do with them, because the training is over, is we're going to bring a contingent of them together, maybe 4 or 5 monthly, as a mastermind group to represent all, in the managers class, represent all of the managers in the enterprise. People will feed in questions and problems and issues, and this group will come together and share their knowledge, skills, and abilities to help solve problems enterprise-wide. So we're going to take the mastermind concept and use it as a follow-up for enrichment in our training programs. But there are so many ways that you can use this. I've had some groups where CEOs have come. I had 2 CEOs come together. You need 2 to start, and I find typically 3 to 5 makes a good functioning mastermind group, good size. You can have more than that. It's just that the dynamics of the group change a bit. But I had 2 in my business. I had 2 companies I was working with that their CEOs. One was a young man who was an engineer, had come up through the ranks and was new to his position, and the other one was a seasoned veteran. And I thought I'd bring them together, and what I was thinking was the seasoned veteran would really help the younger man develop, shorten the learning curve for him. And I was pleasantly surprised to see just the opposite happen. The young man who had his own experience and so forth, it just opened up a whole new world. And I think it, to the older, more experienced leader, I think it probably added 5 years to his professional career, because he came out of there energized and excited every time. So it was... Again, it was just the classic mastermind concept. 2 brains come together and produce things that nobody could do on their own. Now, what we did there is, after 2 people had been together, I think we were together for about a year, then we started to expand, and we would look for another 1 or 2. And I think five, in my experience, 5 to 7 is an ideal mastermind group size.
We'll come back later. I want to make sure I ask you how often people should meet and those types of things. But let's stay with the philosophical part of it a little bit longer here. If someone were to ask you, come to you and say, "I've heard about mastermind groups. I think it's something I'd like to do. Tell me concisely what a mastermind group is and what are the benefits from it that I need to be thinking about."
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure. And I'm going to give you my classic definition for a mastermind group. A mastermind group consists of a small group of individuals with similar interests and experiences who come together to support each other, sharpen professional skills, synergize their efforts, solve problems, and make wiser decisions. Mastermind groups help members achieve greater success by creating and executing meaningful action plans. So each member of the group is going to have, we challenge them to have a goal that they're aiming at. Of course, when we're looking at goals, I like to look at a goal as though it's the future. You take the future and you bring it into today. The way you identify what you want in the future, bring it into today and massage it around and so forth, and put it back out in the future and create a path to get there, if that's not too esoteric to explain it that way. But each person in a mastermind group is going to have their own set of personal and professional goals. And what we do with the mastermind concept is we'll brainstorm, we'll problem solve, we'll help them take a look at their problems and issues and opportunities from a vantage point that's a little bit different than what they've thought before. We bring in new ideas sometimes, and sometimes we just enrich the ideas they have and just have them look at it from a different vantage point. So everybody generally, I have not walked out of a mastermind meeting in the last several years where the people don't come out energized and just feel that I'll ask them at the end of the meeting, we have them do the Caesar vote is what I call it, thumbs up or thumbs down. Was this a productive use of your time in this mastermind session here? I'm yet to have it where it's almost unanimous every time. Yeah, this was really good and it was very beneficial.
Well, I would think that probably anybody could benefit from being in a group, but who do you think could derive the most benefit from being in a mastermind group?
I think people who are going into a new enterprise, like I say, a relatively new manager or supervisor or department head. We'll have mastermind groups for people in the HR department, in IT, purchasing, things of that nature. But you ask about external, internal. What I like to see is, I look in Shelbyville, the community I live in. One of the corporations, you can stand at their front door, and if you got a good arm, throw a rock and hit 5 of the companies. And unfortunately, they don't know each other. And I look at it this way. Each one of them has a plant manager. And what I try to do is get these plant managers to come together. Now, it's important to understand this to begin with. When you put a mastermind group together, you don't want competition. I want to bring groups together that we're setting up an environment where they can trust each other. And so the companies that I'll work with that, let's say, want to bring their plant manager and he or she wants to be part of a mastermind group, I want to make sure that they're not competing in some way. And when they're not competing for clients and business, you can build a trusting relationship. Now, we still, not all, but a lot of our groups will still sign a no compete confidentiality agreement, and that puts their company at ease, that no trade secrets are going out the door. But when they can come together and they're not competing, then trust builds quickly, because when people are willing to share and you walk out and you say, I really benefited from that, it tends to open you up to want to share more. So, it's I don't know, it's chicken and the egg, whether you share or they share, but you walk out just feeling energized and more competent and capable than when you walked in. That's been my experience.
Okay. Well, I know you have a gift for persuasion. So if someone approached you and said, this sounds interesting, I think I might want to become involved with or start a mastermind group, sell the idea. What's a good case for that?
Well, I like to look at it when you're trying to make a behavior change. In this case, trying to make a decision whether to invest the time in a mastermind group. I think or let me just say it this way, anything that you're trying to do to make a behavior change, there are 3 questions that need to be answered. One is why. The second one is what's in it for me. And the third one is what's in it for my group, my team, family, whoever the larger group is. I think the why question, why do we do mastermind groups? Because 2 heads are better than 1. And when they learn to trust each other, I think individuals find that like I said, the concept of an informal board of directors, it allows you to get knowledge and experience from people that have a little bit different experience than you do, where they've learned and they've benefited. You don't have to walk in all those holes, and you can learn yourself. So I think it's good to be able to, all of us in our society need to develop good, solid, trusting relationships. This allows an individual to develop those good, solid, trusting relationships in which they can benefit themselves. So when you want to make any type of behavior change, in this case, just investigating the idea of investing your time, effort, and energy in a mastermind group, I think you need to answer 3 basic questions, and half the problems go away if you have solid answers to these 3. Why, what's in it for me, and what's in it for my group or team. The why of mastermind groups. Why would we join a mastermind group? Because 2 heads are better than 1. And when we can develop a trusting relationship with people and they're open to sharing their methods, their ideas, their perspectives, and so forth, I grow so much more than I would trying to study it all on my own. So that's why we do this. What's in it for me? Well, just the idea of being able to develop good, solid, trusting relationships. And I like to look at it, like I say, as an informal board of directors. These people all have my back. They want me to succeed. And they're going to serve a dual purpose. I benefit by them holding me accountable to keep my commitments and stay on track toward my goals. And on the other side of that coin, but working together, is they encourage me. Right? And we all need people to breathe life into us. And so the accountability and the encouragement are 2 sides of a coin that really help you individually grow as a person, personally and professionally. What's in it for my team? I look at it this way. When I come back into the workplace, having experienced my mastermind, I'm bringing ideas and concepts and energy that I'm going to be able to filter down to the rest of my teammates, my superiors also, and along with those that work under my influence, and everybody benefits. It's one thing to learn from another individual or a group, but when you have the opportunity to use what you've learned and to explain these things to other people, you become more of an active learner. You continue to enrich yourself beyond the formal mastermind experience, and then everybody wins. Your team wins, your company wins, you win, everybody does. So why, what's in it for me, and what's in it for my team? I think there are 3 solid answers to that.
Great. Well, so when you're forming a mastermind group, do you need to have everyone sort of have the same experience level, or is it okay to have someone in the group who might be considered, whatever that industry or interest is, that's sort of at an entry level? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I do, and that's one of the things that's a little bit subjective. When I bring 2 or 3 people together for a mastermind group, what I'm looking for is people that have generally the same level of experience. Like I'll bring together plant managers. They're all plant managers. They share some common problems. I mean, everybody has a problem of finding the best people out there that they can train, that'll put their heart into the work and stay, right? So everybody wants that. So I'm looking at 2 or 3 people coming together. Then we set the ground rules from there. What is it we want to achieve? And who is it that we want to allow in the group after we've developed a trusting relationship here and we decide it's time to expand? We want to have some guidelines on who we let in and how many we let in, and then all of the other logistics like meeting dates, times, and who's going to share. I might mention this. One of the differences when you start to grow as a mastermind group and you have several members, the dynamic changes a little bit. And we start doing what we call hot seats, where one person in the group, and sometimes two, depending on how long your meeting is, will kind of be on the hot seat, which means we're going to focus on your problems and issues, and all of the rest of us in the group, we want to hear what your problem and issue is, and then we're going to brainstorm this. We're going to mastermind it to help you think through issues, but we're going to focus on an individual in the hot seat. So we prepare for those things. Sometimes you can get 2 or 3 hot seats in, depending on how long you meet, but everybody needs the opportunity for the group to focus on their issues and problems. You can do that fairly easily when you have 2 or 3 people, but when it grows, then you need to sequester some time at successive meetings for people to be able to have the meeting really focus on their individual wants and needs.
Well, it's coming to mind the mastermind group that you and I were involved with. There, like you say, there were 5 of us, and we met, I think it was monthly in Louisville, and about a national, about speaking issues or speak. It was a mastermind to help us develop our, and I felt at every meeting like I was definitely the least of these. I appreciated being able to be there, and it meant a lot to me. So I'm just thinking that it's probably good and okay to allow sort of a newbie in.
Absolutely.
And sometimes they can maybe add some observations that the more experienced people have forgotten about or something like that.
Yeah, when I go into companies and we're looking at leadership training and so forth, I'm looking at 3 basic aspects. There's training, and training isn't the answer to everything. There's training, there's more individual work, and sometimes group work with coaching. And then I'm a big believer in mentoring. Whereas a seasoned person will take on a protege and help walk them through, pour into that person. And I think that's what happens in a mastermind group. The one that you were involved in, you had some people that were, a couple of people speak around the world.
Right.
And then here you, and not the least of these.
I was.
But you didn't have as much experience and weren't a professional speaker.
Exactly.
But you were able to gain a lot out of that. So that's kind of the beauty of it. When people trust each other and they're willing to pour into each other, I find, like I said in the opening thing with the younger and the older company leader, I find that the people that serve as mentors and help pour into others, they learn every bit as much as the others do. And that's because we're in a dynamic environment. Things change all the time. And whereas a less experienced younger person may come in, I know this happens to me when I get in a mastermind group with some speakers. I did not grow up keyboarding. So when people talk about the different things in technology that can just make my life so much easier, I find that I get reverse mentored. The protege is mentoring me, and all of that happens inside a mastermind group. So it's just kind of a catch-all overall group where we sincerely want to help each other get better.
Okay. Well, let's sort of pretend we're starting a new mastermind group.
Okay.
So maybe we can see if we can do two things at once. So, or two groups at once. So one in the industry that you are involved with, and then let's say that I, Tom Haley, wanted to start a mastermind group around my passion project, which is podcasting, and I'm adding some video production to that. So maybe I want to be able to be in a group of people who have similar interests. So who should attend? Well, let's use mine as an example. If you
I like that because yours, Bluegrass Region Voices and Views, is kind of a catch-all for a lot of things that benefit people in our region. You may have some people that are doing specific podcasts for other things that, like I say, that you're all podcasters. That's what brings you together. And you want to make sure that you're not poaching off of another, that you're not actually competing with each other. And I don't see the competition in podcasting.
You're correct. Yeah, there would not be competition anyway. So.
Yeah, so you would want to bring, I'd say, 2 or 3 together and get to know each other first. And
2 or 3, you think?
2 or 3, I think, is a good way to start. Get to know each other, and just I would start off just again getting to know each other and share your experience. How much, what have you done in podcasting? How far along are you? I mean, I'm looking at a wonderful professional setup in front of me here in podcasting, and you're the master of podcasting in our region here. And yet there are going to be other people that are relatively new at this, or they're trying to reinvent themselves and come into a different set of emphases for their podcasting. So I would get to know each other, and I would work on communication and trust to begin with here. And we talk about, if we come together, I'd like to know what your strengths are. I want to know that up front for the people that are going to be in the group. What do you consider your strengths? And then your opportunities for improvement. What are some things individually as a podcaster? What are your strengths and opportunities for improvement? And then after we talk about those, I like to have visit each other's shop.
Okay,
that's just the way I do it.
Yeah.
A lot of my mastermind groups are actually in Shelbyville, Kentucky, and it's easy to get around. It's a small community like that, and yet masterminding could be done because of the internet and so forth internationally. So there's no limit to what you can do. But in our particular situation and in yours, I'm sure there are enough people doing podcasting in the region that you might. I think if I were somebody that was in podcasting and I came in to see, I'm looking at all of the setup that you have here and your knowledge and ability and all of your background, I'd like to get on your coattails and learn how to do it, because I know you've stepped in a lot of holes along the way.
Oh, yeah.
And you could direct me how to walk around those holes instead of, you could tell me, Doug, I spent a year in that hole in podcasting, and maybe you ought to walk around it and gain from me. So I would get to know each other first couple sessions just on that level, building a basis of trust and understanding what each other's strengths are and what your individual opportunities for improvement. And then I would start to move into the issues and problems and goals that we have individually. And I might start that first hot seat after maybe the first 2 meetings. I'd have somebody, one of the group, our group meeting, typically an hour, no more than 2 hours. I would have them be the feature and let us know ahead of time so we can think about it. 3 to 5 questions that are burdensome for you that you'd like to talk about, you'd like other people to share their perspectives and experience on. So I would have the person come in. Typically, you start your meeting off, I like to start it with a little bit of tell me something good that happened since our last meeting, and just share something positive that's happened. I like to start the meeting off in a positive way, and I think everybody appreciates that. And then we talk about our agenda for the day and who's what's happened since our last meeting. I'd go around the group and, well, since our last meeting, we had a podcast, and here are the metrics that we have, or whatever you want to say. Here's what's happened since the last meeting, and here are a couple issues that are outstanding that I want the group to be thinking about. Okay, so after we get around that group, then I would probably have one of them be on the hot seat, who's told us, who's emailed us a series of concerns that they have, that they'd like the group to address in mentoring and masterminding and brainstorming. I would want to know ahead of time during the course of the week so I can think about it. So that person's in the hot seat, and we just tick off the questions in one at a time, and then we give your best shot. Here's the problem that I have, and here's how I'm approaching it, and what do you guys think, right? And then everybody shares, well, I've had a similar problem before. I haven't had anything like that. However, I've approached it in a different way through a different set of circumstances, but everybody can help. And the answer to all of that, you're having a dynamic discussion here, and the answer to that feedback you're getting is thank you, right? There isn't, we don't get into conflict during these things, and yet, in between mastermind meetings, you might get together and expand on an issue that was brought up out of the advice, and after a person's had their 3 to 5 issues addressed by the group, then they'll report out, here's what I've gotten from this that I think has really been helpful, because I think that's good. It helps with the adult learning, and it helps to basically repeat back what you understand the feedback to be, so it can be clarified where the river's purest at its source before the person leaves. So I find that makes a good meeting. Then we end with, again, what have we all gotten from this? And all the people that are involved in the brainstorming are probably going to have gotten some things themselves inadvertently by the discussion. So we'll go around the table and just say, here's 2 or 3 things that I picked up from the meeting today. And, we'll just say, I think this was a good use of my time, or hey, in the future, maybe if we would follow the guidelines, we've said that we're not going to talk politics in here, and we got off on that a little bit, or so a little bit of feedback there, because we need to hold each other accountable to, because we want to make it an experience where trust is high and it's never violated, and that people feel good coming out, and the issues that were talked about were safe and were nourishing, and just leaving the idea that this was good and I want to come back and share again.
So is there a leader is it the same facilitator or leader or MC for all of the meetings, or does that rotate, or do you not have a leader?
That's a good question. The way we did it when our little mastermind group of professional speakers, well, first of all, we all make our living with words. So so what we did, if you recall, if we rotated the meeting leadership around, and we kind of blended in the hot seat with whoever the leader was. The leader would run the meeting, and it would be their hot seat and their questions, and we focused on them. And yet, everybody had an opportunity up front to say, what's happened over the last month, and put their issues out on the table, and then we would have the leader themselves. We would focus on their issues, and they've already sent it to us, so we have a heads up on what to talk about. So I think that's one viable way of doing it, is rotate the meeting leadership around. And yet, when I do it with businesses and so forth, a lot of times they want a facilitator, right? And there are some books, there are articles, so forth like that. If somebody were interested in the mastermind concept and being able to do this, they could email me or call me, and I'll share with them how to get started, how to do that type of thing.
Do you have a PDF already made up or something like that?
I don't have a PDF made up, but I've got a couple articles I could put together and get one. By the time somebody calls me from this podcast, we'd have one.
All right. Well, I'd like to have one within a month.
I'd be happy to do it.
Okay,
That's
great.
Right.
Oh, well,
I like that. See, this is a good thing about meetings too. You're allowing me to pull in something that I think makes for a really good meeting. Mm-hmm. I think at the end of these meetings, here's something that we do is what we call commitment clarification, and it basically says this: who is going to do what, by when, and how are we going to follow up? Because what happens sometimes in mastermind meetings is people will get all the input and so forth, and they've got good ideas and they've got a stated goal. But now we need to know that you're going to make progress toward that goal and allow yourself to be held accountable by the group to making progress. So you're contributing to the group and you're benefiting both. And you build trust when you make commitments and keep your commitments. And when we talk about Napoleon Hill saying that in 1 year's time, you can gain more out of a mastermind group than an individual could. Well, excuse me, in a mastermind group, people coming together can gain more than an individual could in 1 year just doing it by themselves. Here's the problem with ourselves a lot of times. We don't hold ourselves as accountable as we should. We'll let ourselves off the hook. But when you make a commitment to your mastermind members, I will do X, and you can come check on it in this next mastermind meeting. You better bet that part of our mastermind meeting coming up will be going around the table and checking on these commits. Hey, right. Last time, Tom, you made a commitment to do X. How you doing on that? And I'll make the commitment to you by the close of business, the final day of this month. I will have the PDF to you on masterminding.
Fantastic.
And you can hold me accountable by, if you don't get it, you give me a call or drop me a note, and I'll make sure that it gets to you.
I will do that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Again, it's very important. Who is going to do what, by when, and how we're going to follow up.
Well, something's happening here that I didn't expect, which is that I am becoming interested in beginning a mastermind group. I mean, that was not my plan when we sat down here, but I am thinking about beginning a mastermind group that would be different from the Lexington Podcasters group where we meet, where we'll have, we'll have sometimes a large group, especially in the fall, and not so much maybe in the summer. But I'd like to form a small group where we're doing these mastermind concept exercises, I'll call them, procedures. I'm thinking back to when we started the mastermind group for our speakers group. Again, I was not a professional speaker. I was wanting to do the speaking I did for my industry as professionally as I could. Right. And I was just so surprised and pleased when, I won't mention last names here, but when Stan came to me and asked me if I would be involved with him in a mastermind group. The two of us met at a Starbucks. That's where it started. And then from there, we talked about who else to invite. And we invited you and Doug and Dan. Mm-hmm. And so we had that number that you're talking about, 5 people. We met once a month for a couple hours. Mm-hmm. And it meant a lot to me, and I'm thinking that this could mean a lot to some other podcasters if we form a group. So my question, how often do you think a group should meet? We've talked about the length and the number of people.
I think it's good to start, like I say, with you have to have at least 2. But no more than 5.
Okay.
I think that's a good rule of thumb to start with. I think starting with an hour, everybody committing an hour, and then you can decide from there, especially as we grow. I would, because if people are working in particular, I would limit it to 90 minutes to 2 hours, right? Once a month, I think.
Once a month,
is a good cadence. And again, these are all soft recommendations because your group may decide, hey, you know what? we have so many topical issues that maybe we need to meet every 2 weeks, that type of thing. Or maybe we do one in person, we do one virtually, that type of thing. So there are a lot of things. That's why you get together and you kind of hammer out. And in this communication, I'll give you some guidelines on how to put your working rules together for the group and how to get this thing off the ground. I'll say this to you also. Do you? And I don't know this, so let me ask you: do you have a podcasters group? A professional group. They're all podcasters and they meet together.
So we do have one here in Lexington. It's called Lexington Podcasters.
Do you know how many people are involved?
We had our meeting just Tuesday of this week. So we meet the third Monday of each month at Bronte Bistro at Joseph Beth Bookstore in their private room back there. And during the summer, the numbers drop off a little bit. At the one we had this past Monday, I'm thinking we had 10 people maybe, but it'll be as much as 20 or 25 sometimes, not during the summer when people are on vacation. So
I'm sure that that group itself, a lot of people are getting their needs met in that by just coming together at that time, and I'm sure that's good. But I think you're going to find people like yourself that would like to engage a little bit deeper with some individuals. So I would say, if you've got a base of 15 to 20 people, I could see easily putting together a group of 3 to 5 and just to talk about it at one of your meetings and see where the interest is. And again, I'll put some questions I ask in this PDF here, because not everybody will want to commit to be part of a mastermind group, and you don't want everybody to commit to be part of a group. So start small and then grow from there. The problem that happens a lot of times is we start too big, and then problems occur and it gets submarine, and you don't need that. Start small, develop the trust and the idea this is a good thing, and we're all really benefiting from it. And then let's take a look at who might we ask to join that for 2 reasons. One, that would certainly be of help to them, but 2, that has gifts, talents, skills, and abilities that we don't have, that we covet. So I see a major win-win all the way around.
Exactly. I'm thinking that, and I wouldn't have considered this before our conversation, that I should, if I'm wanting to form the mastermind group, I'm thinking I should not put out like a blanket invitation to the whole community. That I should decide this person, and maybe pick one other person I'd really like to meet regularly with this person, and then as Stan did, ask me. Then I would ask that person, who else do you think should be involved? And we'll just grow it like that. And it can almost be like, I don't think everybody didn't know that we had this, that our 5 were meeting. That wasn't something we really talked about or advertised. So I could put together a mastermind group of 3 to 5 people, and other people don't even need to know about it.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to start with 3, right? Since this is the first time you're doing it. Let me dovetail off of something that we teach in our leadership training. When a new manager comes on board, what I advise them to do, if you're going to make a mistake in being too firm and structured, right? Because you can always ease up. Don't make a mistake of being too loosey-goosey and lax and so forth, and it gets out of control, because then it's 10 times hard to bring it back. I think in your situation, as we're talking about this as a practical example, if you were to start with a small group, maybe 3 people, and work the kinks out, right? And how you can benefit each other, and set some guidelines and where do we want to go from here. But if you were to bring in, just open it up, everybody come in, I'll guarantee you somebody is not going to be a fit for your group, and they're going to get disillusioned, and sometimes it can pull your whole group down. So you don't want that.
Right. Okay. Well, what are some concerns or pitfalls that you've experienced? Or
Well, we just hit one right there, trying to grow too fast, too early. I think that it's good to have somebody that's done a little bit of study ahead of time on what the group wants and needs, and what group dynamics are all about, how to run a meeting and so forth. You need somebody that can do that, not just purely wing it, because you'll have a lot of people that have similar interests, but they don't have a background on how to communicate, how to run a meeting, how to follow up and follow through. So I think one of the pitfalls is somebody not being, let's just call it lightly trained on how to do this, right? Having a structure. I think that sometimes we get groups together and people are conflict averse and so forth, and will let others run over them, right? I think you need some good solid rules on etiquette and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Like I said before, these things that are said in your mastermind meeting, if it's a concept or even a document, you need to have permission, before you share that or even talk about it with other people. This is a trust issue here, and it could be that you're willing to share anything and doesn't matter who knows, right? But it's not always that way. So I think starting small and going through the growing pains of team dynamics and understanding, some people may come into Mastermind Group and want to dominate it. Some people may come in with issues and ideas they want to discuss that just don't fit the group. So I think make haste slowly is what I'd say.
Well, if that happens, that you get someone you just don't feel that they're right for the group, how do you fire them?
I think you have right in your bylaws for the group when you start, and this is how people enter the group, and this is how people exit the group, right? And I've had this happen before over the years where a person has said, this group is not moving in the direction that I really want to go, and it's nothing personal to the group, but I'm going to exit the group because we're moving in a direction that it's not really benefiting me like I like, and I don't feel I'm benefiting the group. So I've had, and haven't been many people this happened to, but I'm thinking over the course of the last 10 years, I can think of 5 cases where somebody left the group. 3 of them, they left on their own for that reason. We all parted friends and everything else, and they just didn't feel that the group they were participating with the group and giving of themselves. So one of them in particular was missing too often and felt that they needed to leave the group. But 2 of them, we had to exercise our bylaws and tell them that we didn't feel it was a fit anymore, and that good luck, God bless, and be well, but we're going to ask you to leave the group.
Wonder if it could be beneficial to have seasons. In other words, you start this mastermind group and you're in season 1, and you say that this season is going to last for 12 weeks.
I think it's a very wise way to do it. I think that's excellent. If we have our opening, I don't know what you want to call it, our introductory season like that, and then we're going to close down for a period of time, and then we may pick up again with another group, and you may decide, you make a decision there. I want to pursue this group going forward, or I think this is good, but I'm not going to rejoin. I think that's a very good idea. Yeah. I haven't done that, but I think it's a very good idea. So I love your podcast, Tom, because I walk out of here being enriched every time.
It's almost like a mastermind group.
That's right.
I was just thinking, by having a season, then some people might not, they might be hesitant to join something where they think, I don't really want to commit to this for like 5 years or something. But if it's just 12 weeks, it's like, I'll give that a shot for 12 weeks and I'll give it my best.
I think it's a great idea.
So, great. I'm smarter than I look.
Yeah.
So as far, I think we're wrapping up here.
Okay.
Is there, you're going to put this PDF together. Other than that, How would somebody, if they wanted to go out right now and get more information about how to begin a mastermind group, where could they go?
Well, they could drop me an email. I'd be happy to respond to them. Doug at Semenick, SEMENICK .biz, BIZ, and I'm sure that when you do your advertisements and so forth, well,
That'll be in the show notes.
it'll be in there. Or they could call me. I'll take a phone call on this. My number is 502-640-2497. It's my business number. So if you're really interested, give me a call, drop me an email, and be happy to respond to you.
Great. And tell us a little bit more about what you're doing these days in your career at Semenick and Associates.
Well, I tell you, we have really gravitated toward the Leadership Academy. And then what I'm really excited about is in any type of training, coaching, training, mentoring, and so forth, you're looking at behavior change. And what I've noticed in all the years that I've done training and coaching is you have a group, they get the training, and then you don't know what's happened, right? And so what I do in our group now is we're really focusing on the follow-up and follow-through piece. So we'll stay in contact with the group. They have my training ends with a 90-day rollout plan, and over that time there are some videos involved. There's a continuing growth, and they apply what they've learned. And they have accountability partners, encourageability partners is what I like to call them. And they just continue to grow, because I've found in training so often, once the training's over, people kind of fall off the cliff. And follow up and follow through is the thing that I'm really focusing on today.
And where all do you work? Are you primarily in Kentucky these days?
I'm primarily in Kentucky and about 100-mile radius from Shelbyville, Kentucky, where I live. But I'm still doing, I'd say, 20% of my work getting on a plane and going out. We have a client up in Lethbridge, Canada, that we're working with, and one down in Florida. And so we still do some in the nationwide, but primarily it's a 100-mile radius.
Do you have enough bandwidth, I've heard people call it, in your life to take on more clients?
I'd love to have another client or two in our Leadership Academy. Again, if somebody were interested in that, I've got that all written up, and I'd be happy to send you a PDF on that. But when you're trying to, here's what happens. Let me just say this quickly. What happens so often is we take a person that has been a very good individual contributor, and we put them in a manager, supervisor position, and we don't train them to do it. And then we get disappointed because they're not producing the results that we want. Well, so much of that is training and coaching and mentoring. And that's what we do in our Leadership Academy. And I'm excited, to work with new clients, and I'd like to have one or two more.
Good. Okay. And we did a podcast last year where we dove a little deeper into leadership concepts, and I'll have a link to that with the episode number and so on in the show notes as well.
As I recall, we called that Leaders Building Leaders.
I think that's right. Yeah, right.
That's part of the highlights of what I like to do in training is once you've been trained, every session, go back and explain or teach somebody else what you've just learned. And then you become an active learner. You learn it some more. That's another podcast, but
sure.
Adult learning is a big thing.
Well, I'd like for us to do another podcast and not wait a full year this time. Well, I appreciate your. I feel like, as I mentioned, every time we're together, I feel like it's a little mastermind group of two people. So I appreciate that very much. So as you know, this is Bluegrass Region Voices and Views, and we did this last year, but I'm going to make another fresh attempt at it, or not attempt, but ask you these questions again, my Bluegrass Region Highlights questions. So these days, what is a favorite restaurant or coffee shop in Kentucky? It can be anywhere in the Bluegrass state that you like to frequent.
Well, my wife took me to a place in Louisville called Lulu's. And they have what is it? It's kind of a cinnamon monkey bread and so forth that is, it is addictive. It's one of those things. I don't know how many times she said to me, well, I don't want to necessarily go for dinner, but I want to go get that bread.
Get dessert.
Right? So, yeah, Lulu's.
Lulu's, okay, super. And then what's a favorite venue or activity, like a venue where you like to go to or really take an out-of-town guest to show off our local culture, or activity that you like to do for an out-of-town guest?
About half of my business today is with the spirits industry, and there are some wonderful opportunities. The Bourbon Trail is one of them, is in Kentucky. That is so well done. A couple of the clients that I work with, Heaven Hill Distilleries and Maker's Mark, they both have an individual tour that is just outstanding. So if you really want to understand about the spirits industry and how it's profoundly affected Kentucky and continues to do so in a hands-on way, I think their tours are excellent.
Great. All right. Lulu's and the Bourbon Trail, it's called, right? Mm-hmm. Doug, as you know, I appreciate our friendship and our little mastermind meetings of two, and we'll do this again, and we won't wait a year this time.
And I'll say one last thing here. There's not been a time we've done this where I haven't come down enriched with new ideas. Thank you, Tom.
Super. Thank you. Appreciate you, Doug. Doug impressed me from the day I met him, and I know he can bring deep value to any organization with his consulting and training. I'm still benefiting from my participation with him a few years ago in a mastermind group that met monthly for a couple years. He's not a one-and-done guy. He can connect with a company and their culture and work with them for weeks, months, or years to get to where they want to be. And if you need a keynote or luncheon or after-dinner speaker, he's excellent at that too. His email is doug@semenick.biz, and his website is at semeneckandassociates.com. I highly recommend him. Pictures and links are in the show notes on my website at bluegrassregionvoicesandviews.com. Now, a brief commercial about me. I'm beginning a project to help people record a little of their personal story to share with their current family and descendants. I'm working on the webpage that will describe this, which I'm calling Your Story in Your Voice. I'm posting brief videos there that describe what it's about. Go to yourstoryinyourvoice.com to see how this is coming along. Thanks for listening.